What are the gains from the United Nations General Assembly? What are the positives Nigerians can leverage on? We're now being joined by the Senior Special Assistant and spokesperson to the Vice President. Is also the President's Media Communications Office in the Office of the Vice President, Stanley Nkwocha. Nkwocha. Okay. Thanks very much, Stanley, for joining us.
Thank you, Chris.
I mean, it's been a long trip for you and the presidential entourage. But tell us, I mean, a lot of criticisms, greeted African leaders at the United Nations General Assembly because of the opulence of wealth they displayed, the limousine bringing them to the General Assembly, and the hotels they were staying in the heart of New York, in Manhattan, instead of other, Western leaders living outside the city and the rest.
Okay, so
how was it like for the Nigerian delegation?
So normally what happens is that if you talk about transportation, it's actually the U.S. government and of course the UN, the U.S. government, the UN that takes care of transportation and logistics and to some extent to accommodation. So when you see some of the presidents in limousine, it's not as if they opted for it. Sometimes it's the arrangement they meet on ground. But for us as a country, this particular UN was successful. A lot of positives. Mr. President did delegate Mr. Vice President to the delegation to this year's UNGA. It was an UNGA that was highly successful. Mr. President came out all out, spoke like never seen before in the history of United Nations. Called a spade, made case for Nigeria, and of course, at the end of it all, it was a highly successful event that had a lot of positives and a lot of homecoming in terms of success and
okay, let's evaluate some of the positives, or maybe one of the minuses according to some critics. One, for example, Nigeria and other African nations asking for debt reliefs and, asking to be part of the Security Council. Africa deserves at least a seat and what have you. But the criticism is that why are you asking for debt forgiveness when they see the kind of wealth that the country lives on, but the people are impoverished?
Chris, you agree with me that when a country asks for debt relief, it's not because of its indolence, it's not because of its laziness. When you ask for debt relief, it has positive impacts too, because a lot of times when you ask for forgiveness, what it means is that you'll be saving, and from saving you could put a whole lot of money into infrastructure. When you put a whole lot of money into infrastructure, you put more money into investments. What it means is that there's going to be job creation, and there are job creations, issues like banditry, issues like kidnapping, issues like all those issues bedeviling us as a nation get reduced, and when they get reduced, the effect is that you have lesser dependence on some of those folks you go borrowing money from. So it's a win-win situation in any case. But then again, too, let's also look at it from what it is. Mr. President is not asking for debt cancellation for his own benefit. He's calling for it as a result of renewed call for financial overhaul, infrastructure overhaul. Okay, and I've just given you some of the benefits. So it's a drive that if it succeeds, is going to see the whole of Africa benefiting from it, and of course, to those we run to for help are going to also feel the less burden. I mean, if you take a look, for instance, at the removal of subsidy, as controversial as it is, for instance, you have a whole lot of money coming to the central government right now, and then from center we have a whole lot of money going to the states, to the subnationals, to the local governments for the first time in the history of Nigeria, even when you thought it was so impossible. But now this is what is happening. We've seen the benefits.
But a lot of Nigerians who say they are not feeling the effect.
Well, you could say that, but just take a look at what's happening today. Just today again, you have the president donating buses buses.
64 buses.
Yes. So
what
does that
impact is that going to make, really, in a country of 200 million people? Very sincerely, is it just for the federal public servants? Does it include, the ordinary people on the street living in the suburbs and the rest?
It's you have to take this step by step. You agree with me? And if you have a president that has taken this initiative, you must also take into cognizance that, look, this has been this has been a long time in the waiting. Okay, these are issues that we've met on ground. Okay, but then again, this president is taking the bull by the horn. He's not shying away from this responsibility. He knows that, look, this is where the shoes and the pinch. It's taking it head on, and this is the first phase, and gradually we'll get more buses getting out there.
Yeah, we
and
said,
of course, don't forget
about
about
700 buses will
exactly.
be rolled out.
And so don't also forget that the process of converting these buses also take time. All right, so this is what the government is starting as for a start, and by the special grace of God, we'll definitely get there. This is a president that listens. This is a president that has his ears on the ground. This is a president who cares and feels the impact of Nigerians. And gradually we'll get there.
Let's look at the other demand by Mr. President at UNGA, is that at least Africa and even Nigeria deserves a seat at the Security Council, that it should be expanded beyond the 5 members, who've often controlled it, vetoing and not vetoing one, UN resolution or the other.
Yeah.
But again, critics will say, you've not been able to secure the Nigerian space, and you say you want to go and be at
that would be taking it to some heights. But let me just contextualize this argument, okay? And let me bring it down so that for the benefit of folks watching us. Chris, if you have a community land, for instance, and those who the land, for instance, was left in their custody at those early ages were those who, take for instance, had better education or got schooled earlier on. Because sometimes you had a situation where the community had to even donate foodstuff for those class of folks to go to school those days, okay? The question, and then of course they take custody of this land. My question is it fair that given the projection in terms of growth, in terms of awareness, in terms of education, in terms of expansion, in terms of population now, that those folks continue to hold on to that particular land? So if you look at it, what I'm trying to say in essence is this. The United Nations was created in 1945, and then with the 5 members that now constitute what is called the UN Security Council, permanent members, and then as of today, you have 193 members in the UN. And then the question is, how fair is it, okay, that you have these particular 5 nations, okay, who have control, who have the veto power to control the resolutions coming out from the United Nations, when there are 193 other members. Of course, there are you have also the temporary members. But then again, the question is, if you have growth, if you have globalization, if you have population, if you have membership, all tripling, it only calls to question the membership, the permanent membership of this organization. And that's why Mr. President is calling for expansion, is calling for Nigeria's participation, and no other country better get that particular seat from Africa, given Nigeria. You know why? We have a long history of participating in UN activities, including the world peacekeeping missions. I do not think there's any mission, there's any country that has supported UN missions across the world,
more
like
Nigeria
in Africa.
Yes.
No less than 200 of our peacekeeping forces have been. We've lost lives. Not talk about the amount of resources we've put in place. Here in ECOWAS too, you've seen Nigeria's boldness, capacity in trying to keep, yes, we have challenges right now, but of course, over the years, you've seen the boldness with which Nigeria has kept ECOWAS intact, all right? Whether it's in Liberia, even during South Africa apartheid, Nigeria was always there, okay? So right now, again, exactly, and then again, take into our population can never be a weakness for us. Our population must at all times be seen as a game for us. This, so if you juxtapose all these factors together, and then Mr. President didn't shy away from it. He spoke to the points. Look, He's not calling for anything that's out of reach. He's not the only. We're not the only countries calling for such change. It's obvious now that look, you cannot continue to hold on to this United Nations Secretary General. And then again, too, Chris, if you remember, it's good we begin to interrogate some of these compositions. Remember when Kofi Annan wanted to become the Secretary General of the UN? Russia vetoed. Remember the move, you know, and then you have 193 member states for voiceless. Only for one country to say no, you cannot. A lot of horse trading had to go on before. Why should it be like that? So, on our part, it's about capacity, it's about endowment, it's about capability, and that's what we're driving on.
It's all right, Stanley. You've spoken very well there. Now, let's look at what were the other takes. You know, there are quite a number of sideline events, you know, some MOUs, some agreements, investors are coming and the rest, you know, because we had quite a number of Nigerian companies over there too.
Yeah, well, as soon as Mr. Vice President landed in New York, one of the first meetings he had was a meeting with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And after that meeting, given the show of experience, the show of commitment, they couldn't but announce a whopping $320 million for support, women endowments, and of course too for health and endowments. I mean, it was that massive, you know, for you to see the U.S. Chamber of Commerce believing in your dreams, and apart from that too, they also gave $5 million to Lagos Business School, you know, for investment in cassava production. These are minor areas that we think might not be anything, but them in their own
in the long
run, you know, they are looking at future prospects. Now, apart from that too, we had DP World, one of the biggest maritime companies in the world, coming in, had a meeting with Mr. Vice President proposing to build one of the biggest seaports in Africa. That again was also massive for us. Mr. Vice President had a meeting with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, in which the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation committed a whopping $600,000 for those who are challenged by recent flood, Maiduguri, and of course other health challenges too. You know, so it's been quite a flurry of games. We had MasterCard too.
For the Vice
Coming in, MasterCard was there too, supporting us with almost supporting 1 million farmers across Africa, with Nigeria inclusive, in that particular drive. And then aside too, we had a meeting. One of the highlights for me was a meeting the Vice President held with the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, in which again Guterres committed the United Nations to more collectivism, more interest. You know, regional security was discussed. He pledged the United Nations continued assistance. You know, these are high points. Most times, the presence alone, you know, the Commonwealth Secretary General too came calling too with Mr. Vice President. You know, had a lot of meetings, and then it was totally successful.
Yeah, quite fruitful.
You couldn't have had it more.
Very quickly now, because we don't have all the time, Stanley. In just some few hours, it's going to be Nigeria's 64th Independence Day celebration. Is Mr. President going to surprise Nigerians with his cabinet shakeup on the 1st of October?
That would be left for Mr. President to decide. But be rest assured that Mr. President I've had opportunities of being in meetings with Mr. President and Vice President, and I've never seen leaders that are so committed like them, whether in their thoughts, whether in their forecasts, whether in their pronouncements. You need to see how committed they are, and by the special grace of God, we are having present challenges, and they've never shied away from it. But if you look at the institutions we're building right now, you've never seen it happen. Infrastructure endowments, you clearly see that these are Democrats. These are leaders who respect the will and wishes of and aspirations of Nigerian people, not pushing or going down the throats of Nigerians. They're very, very committed. By the special grace of God, we are just 64 years, and by the special grace of God, we'll definitely get there.
Thank you so very much. No better place for you to draw the anchor there. Stanley Nkwocha. He's a senior special assistant in the office of the media office of the president and spokesperson of the vice president.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.